Hello, good evening, good afternoon, from wherever you are joining. It is morning for us in Dr. City. I see folks are just getting on, so we'll give you all a moment to join. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to learn more about our education leadership program. My name is Shaylin Carey, and I am a portfolio director within professional education at Harvard's Graduate School of Education. So, our division at the School of Education is responsible for connecting with the field through about 140 professional development programs that we offer annually on our campus in Cambridge, Massachusetts, as well as virtually and all around the world. We serve around 14,000 educators annually through our programs, and we work with folks who are, early childhood teachers all the way up through university presidents and sort of everything in between. And we're very excited to be bringing you this program in collaboration with XED, who has been an amazing collaborator to get the word out to support our interested applicants and support the delivery of the program. And so what we hope to do today is we'll kind of do a deeper introduction of myself and Dr. City. We'll talk about the structure of the program, the learning goals, some additional faculty that will be involved in the program, what the next steps are for you as interested applicants for the program, and we'll end with some questions. I know some of you might have submitted questions when you registered for today's event, so we have those that we'll pose to Dr. City towards the end. And so a little bit more about my role with the program. So I coordinate directly with our faculty to kind of design the learning arc and academic aspects of the program, as well as working with the XED team on all of the logistics that go into designing and delivering the program. And it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce to you Dr. Elizabeth City, who is working as the faculty chair of the program. So really focused on designing the academic experience and working with the other faculty to bring all of the pieces together. She's a senior lecturer on education at Harvard's Graduate School of Education, and she's the executive director of the Reach Every Reader program and previously served as director of our Doctorate of Education Leadership. She served as a teacher, instructional coach, principal, and consultant, and each role focused on helping all children and the educators who work with them realize their full potential. And she's currently focused on developing successful readers and strategic leaders in equitable, learning-rich environments. She's authored and co-authored several books for educators, including Meeting Wise, Data Wise, Strategy and Action, Instructional Rounds in Education, and most recently, Leading Strategically, Achieving Ambitious Goals in Education. And she works with us as a faculty chair on several of our programs, including our certificate in advanced education leadership and accelerating instruction principles leading instructional improvement. So with that, I'll turn things over to Dr. City.
Oh my goodness, Shaylin, that was quite an introduction. Thank you. Hello, everyone. We're so excited you were able to make time today to join us. And we're excited to tell you about this new program that we're doing in collaboration with XED. This is one of my favorite kinds of programs because it's a combination of online learning and in-person learning. There are advantages to each, and we can take advantage of those. So one of the beautiful things about this program is it's spread over a period of time. We'll start sometime this summer and go through the winter. So you have some time to actually try on and practice in your setting the things that we're doing in the program. And I think that's the best way to learn. There's lots of research evidence, but also practice evidence that says, if you can have learning that is relevant to your context and go try to practice it and then come back and talk about it with other people and learn some other things, that is what really, really leads to impact in your setting. So we're excited to have this chance to work with you over a period of time. We'll do 10 online live sessions. 5 will be led by Harvard Graduate School of Education faculty, and 5 will be led by education field experts identified by XED. So you see this partnership where we're trying to really bring you the most relevant, wonderful expertise from around the world. We'll start that first session in summer 2026. And then we'll do all those online sessions. And then in the winter, we will end in person in Dubai with a 3-day institute that will, I'll be there and some of my faculty colleagues, and we'll do some live learning together because there's different kinds of things you can do in person. And we'll celebrate the learning journey we've had as well. And then at the end of all of that, you will get a certificate from the Harvard Graduate School of Education saying that you've completed this program. So we have lots of learning goals because there are lots of needs in the field. So as Shaylin said, I do a lot of my work in leadership. My work is focused on developing education leaders at every level of education systems. And I'm really focused on learning. How do we improve learning for children? What does that mean for adult learning? So our very first goal is related to that. We want to build your leadership capacity and skills. We also know you can't do the work by yourself. So we need to help you learn how to do your work in teams better. And teams are one of the key units for driving change in any kind of organization. So we'll focus a lot on that. And as I said, this is all about learning at the end of the day. So we want to make sure that you can bring what you already know about instructional leadership, as well as what we can add to the mix of what you know, and put all that together to improve student outcomes. And of course, there's all these things that surround learning, right? And so, how do you think about all the people? I mean, education is fundamentally a people business, right? So, how do you think about all the people around that learning, and how do you enhance culture and well being of your staff and of your students? And I feel like the world keeps reminding us that we need to tend to the well being of all of the people we serve in order to really help people learn and thrive. And then the last piece, as Shaylin just told you, I am a practitioner. I started off teaching secondary students. Grade 7 was my absolute favorite. I led schools. I've done a lot of different work and in schools and school systems. And for me, if we're going to spend all this time learning together, we have to give you really practical things you can use. So the last goal is about making sure you have practical tools and frameworks that you can apply directly. And as I said, the goal is, you get something in a session and then you go try that on in your work. We're not waiting till the end of the session for you to try to use things. That's why we have this design of spreading the learning out over a period of months. So those are pretty ambitious goals, but I think we can do them together. So how it works, all of the sessions will be led by 2 different kinds of faculty, as I said. So my colleagues and I from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, we will be bringing you our work from the field. We draw on lots of different kinds of knowledge. We draw on research. We draw on, we're always actively doing work in the field. We don't just sit at Harvard watching other people do things. We're always out really interacting with practitioners from around the world and learning from them, as well as trying to help them do their work. We'll also have a lot of interactive lectures. There will be lots of different kinds of pedagogies, including case teaching. As Shaylin just said, my most recent work is focused quite deeply on what it means to lead strategically. And so we'll be using that as a lens through which we'll be trying to give you this range of tools. Now, your work is to identify a problem of practice. By that, we mean something you're feeling stuck about in your setting, or something you'd really like to make progress on in your work context. And you're going to use that to kind of practice all that learning that we're doing throughout the program. And at the very end, you'll submit a final action plan that kind of integrates all your learnings. And then you'll get that certificate. I will be bringing some of my faculty colleagues with me to Dubai, 2 of my favorite humans here. Dr. Karen Mapp, who has a really long title right now. She just was awarded this William and Miriam Meehan Professor Practice Chair. Dr. Mapp's work is in a variety of domains, including organizational leadership. She also is a nationally and internationally known expert in how do we engage families and communities, not just telling them what we're doing in schools, but as active partners in learning. As a parent of two school-age children myself, I deeply appreciate this perspective. My colleague, Dr. Vanya Page, works in many different parts of Boston. We borrow her at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, but her primary work is at actually the Harvard School of Public Health, and she's a practicing psychologist at Boston Children's Hospital. A lot of her work historically has been with young people who have experienced some kind of trauma, whether that is originally she started off working a lot with children who were refugees from some kind of conflict situation. And that has expanded in lots of domains to first work with children and also with adults, because a lot of educators serving children have experienced some kind of trauma in their own setting. And so a lot of Dr. Page's work is around how do we recognize the various complexities people are bringing with them into a learning environment, and how do we support really healthy, thriving people in our environments. So those are two of my colleagues who are planning to come to Dubai. All right, so if all this sounds like something that might be just the right fit for you in your practice, this little QR code on the screen will take you right to our website at Professional Education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and you'll be able to learn a little bit more about the program there and apply. We'd love to have you apply and join us. And now we're to the more spontaneous part where some of you all submitted questions in advance of things you were interested in. And I am ready to have Shaylin toss a question to me, and we'll see what I have to say about it. I'm not even sure yet. So Shaylin, what questions do we have?
Sure. Maybe I'll stop sharing so we can see each other a bit better and see anything else that might come through in the chat. But the first question we have, many school leaders today are balancing academic priorities with increasing operational and stakeholder pressures. So how does our program help leaders step back and rethink their role beyond day-to-day administration?
That's a great question. I feel like it's one of the hardest things. When I was a school leader, each day I had a list of things I wanted to do and then a list of things that actually happened that were kind of coming at me. So part of what we do is back to this leading strategically piece. Part of what we do is help you actually kind of learn how to pause and ask the right questions to figure out what is most important to be paying attention to right now and why, and then who needs to be doing what work right now and why. Because sometimes you can just get sucked right into the vacuum of I've got to do everything myself as a leader, versus if you can pause and really think about how do I figure out where to focus, what do I prioritize. So that's a piece of it. And then so our program will do a lot of those, give you a lot of different tools for that. And also the power of questions and just really knowing which questions to ask, both to hold your self-study, but also the organization. And this piece about, oh, I know I'm supposed to be doing instructional stuff, but then there's all this organizational stuff. That also is an invitation to think a little more creatively about how you're using your resources, and really how to build other people's capacity. Because I think where leaders run into trouble is when they're trying to do all of it themselves. And so our program will help you think about your team, how to build other people's capacity, as well as what are some of the kind of creative resource ways you can think about your school, your organization, because I think there's often a lot of untapped leadership potential in organizations, and we don't exactly know how to cultivate it. And that helps a little bit with that problem of what about the operational side? It's keeping me from the instructional side. So we'll do a lot of different things about that.
Wonderful. Great. I know I've seen a lot of your sessions that focus on exactly this and thinking about, the ease impact tool that you use to show how or to guide leaders on how to prioritize different initiatives and in terms of the amount of effort versus the amount of impact that they'll yield. So I think, yeah, that for this question, this program is very well suited.
Yeah, that's my favorite strategic tool. We'll definitely use that one in the program.
Okay, next question. So, education systems around the world are changing rapidly. From your perspective, what distinguishes institutions that adapt well from those that struggle to evolve?
Ooh. Um, One thing I think that distinguishes organizations that adapt well is their approach to failure, error, mistakes, as well as their systems for learning. Those are related, but not quite the same thing. Um, so it, organizations that have both the kind of systems as well as the culture for learning, whether that's how you organize teams and meeting time, how, once we try something, how do we use an after action review or something like that to look at how did it go? What did we learn? What can we do next time? Um, just what are your systems for? I mean, Shaylin's been and I have been in a lot of meetings together. I like to even pause at the end of a meeting and say, what went well? What can we learn for next time? And then apply that directly to the next meeting. So it's all these kind of mini and macro tools for learning, which we will definitely use in this program. So that's one thing I think that distinguishes is, are we learning every day, and are we also learning from the big things we're trying to do? And that keeps us nimble, keeps us able to adjust. But related to that is, how open are we to just things not going quite right? Right, like just that as educators, we often take our work very personally, and which is good in some ways, but it also means that sometimes we tie our work too closely to our identity, so that if something doesn't go well, all of a sudden I am a failure. It's like, well, no, that thing didn't work, right? It doesn't mean I'm a bad teacher, a bad leader. It means that thing we tried didn't work for those people at that moment. And so how do we learn from that? So the organizations that are best able to keep adapting are the ones that see a kind of setback or a bump in the road or something unexpected as like, okay, now what are we going to do next? And I think those are the ones. And whereas the ones that are really not adapting or keep trying to do things the way we used to do it and are kind of afraid to try something new because they're afraid it's not going to go well. It's probably not going to go the way you think, but we got to figure out how to learn quickly. And we'll definitely talk about that in the program too.
Yeah, I know that's something that Carrie Matt focuses on as well in her when she's talking about implementing next steps in family engagement and what are sort of those safe to fail experiments that you can do that are, kind of low stakes, but they still allow for some level of risk taking and learning from that. So good question. Okay, so next question is for leaders who have spent most of their careers within education, how important is it to learn leadership frameworks from outside the sector, and how does this program approach that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel I love learning from other sectors because so much of leadership and organizations, that a lot of the fundamentals really cut across sectors. And I think in education, we can get a little parochial, a little like everything's so special about education. We can't learn from others. And whereas I think there's a ton to learn from other sectors. So we'll we're going to see what your problems of practice are and what questions you're bringing to really pin down all the topics, because we've got a bunch of ideas, we've got kind of an arc, but we also are kind of waiting till everybody registers to see what you're telling us you most need. So I can't guarantee exactly what the content is yet because we want to adapt a little bit to you. But we use a lot of case studies in our work generally, and we love to use out of sector case studies. Like I'll give one example. We use a case study about a children's hospital to help think about psychological safety. And the case study is a story about an error that could have resulted in deep harm to a child, but it was caught and it was okay. But the hospital uses it as a way to try to get more comfortable with people um, admitting error. Because if we can't admit error, it accumulates. And so we use it as an example to help us think about our own psychological safety, our own way, or how easy is it to create error, or not to create error? It's really easy to create error. How easy is it to speak about error and build the systems and culture where we can talk about it? So that's just one example. That's a case we often use for a content that's really relevant for our work. So we love to use out of sector cases, as well as a lot of the frameworks we use kind of come from a mix of areas. A lot of the strategic tools that I use, I've adapted from different sectors to the education sector. So we just are looking for the things that we think are going to be most useful, right? So we harvest them from a lot of places.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was thinking that too with the case method, that originated through law and through business, and it's something that we use a lot in our programs. Um, okay, next question. One challenge many education leaders face is aligning teachers, parents, and governing bodies around a shared vision. What approaches have you seen work best in creating that alignment?
Mm, yeah, this is where we'll get into this a little bit too in the program. I would say um, one is not to get the thing not to do is to get sort of really stuck on the wordsmithing a vision statement. I think often when people think about vision, they think about the vision statement that's on the website and everywhere. And what I found, we actually have a tool. We'll see if this is something you all want to work on. I have a tool that is an assessment tool for really looking at your vision. And one of the dimensions of it is how shared and owned is it, right? And then another dimension of it is how enacted is it in practice. And so often I say those two because those are often the two lowest self-assessed dimensions of vision. And so then when we work with that, often what people realize is that they've made it too complicated and that they kind of need to distill it into even just a few words that people can hang on to, and then they need stories that go with those words. And so and also just you can't come back to it too often, right? You need it all over the school walls, you need it, in conversation, you need it in celebrating what a student did. Oh, you're really living our value around this, our vision around that, right? And so I think it's the continuing to come back to it, but have it simplified enough with stories and images that people kind of get a sense of, oh, this is what we mean by this thing.
Definitely. And I know, um, particularly around aligning teachers and families in schools, Karen Mapp's work is amazing for that, and looking at her dual capacity building framework that really treats families as equal partners to the school and supporting their children. So I think, yeah, we'll definitely be touching on areas of that. So after completing the program, what kinds of shifts do you typically see in how participants approach leadership in their institutions?
Oh, I love that question. So I think one thing is people just see with new lenses, right? It's like you put on like a new pair of glasses and you're like, okay, as one leader I worked with recently said to me, I can't unsee that now, right? Because you now have these lenses that you can see things differently. I think another thing that we really commonly see is that leaders are less reactive. They really can take that pause and kind of slow themselves down enough, not because they're less urgent, but actually because they realize when I'm feeling urgent is when I most need to slow down just a beat to figure out where and how I want to act. And so I think that's a big shift we often see. And I think people also just have more awareness of their strengths and also their growth areas and how to use the strengths to both develop other people as well as to grow their own developing edges. And then beyond that, it's often very particular to the person, right? Like that ease impact tool you were talking about. Some people, they're using that right away. I always like to tell people when I'm working with them in this kind of a program, I'm not expecting you to use everything we do, right? Just like we're trying to invite you to prioritize and sift what's most useful to you in all of your work. That's true for this too. But I really hope you are taking at least one idea and really implementing it in your practice. I really hope you're taking at least one question and really living that, and at least one tool. And people always say to me at the end, I can't narrow it to one tool or two tool or three tools. So um, the thing I love about this kind of extended program is people really do things in their practice that move work in their practice. And often they'll get a deeper understanding of perspectives in their own setting, from the students, from the teachers, from the families. Because they'll slow down enough to ask some questions rather than just solving everything. So I think often people will do that. But it's been, I can just say all these examples are popping in my head of just like different things people have done in their setting. So I think I was trying to share some of them sort of mindset, sort of heart set sort of shifts, but really anybody who is trying things in practice is, some people are just like, I can now really run a good meeting. And I'm like, yay, but other people are like, I already know how to run a good meeting. What I need to figure out is how am I going to have a difficult conversation with someone, right? Or I need to figure out what are we actually going to focus on as an organization when we have 67 initiatives or something, right? So for each person, it's a little different what they end up taking away. But those are a few thoughts.
Yeah, I'll say from reading a lot of our program evaluations, one of the biggest themes I see come up is that folks did experience a mindset shift through the course of the program, and that sort of can affect how they approach all different areas of their work. So that's always very exciting to see. And even when we think about the problem of practice that, folks come in with, a lot of times that changes throughout the duration of the program as they start to really tease apart that problem and look at the root causes of it. And so their focus could be, starting in one place and completely shift to another place based on really thinking that through deeper. Okay, we just have a couple of minutes left, and we've gotten some more questions that have come through. So we're going to coordinate with the XED team to kind of collect those and respond to those after the session and make sure you get those answers that you're looking for. And I'll share one more time as well. With some questions that you had believe are answered through the program webpage, or if you access the link on the webpage to download the brochure, there's a lot of great details in there. But we will coordinate with the team to get your questions answered. But we thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much, Dr. City, for taking the time to walk us through the program and learn more about the goals and the content. And we hope to see you soon virtually and in Dubai.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining us. And we hope, I always say one of the parts of being strategic is being able to say no to things. That's actually a really important part of being strategic. So we hope that this has given you enough information to discern. One of the other things we'll talk about in the program, to discern if this is a good fit for you. And we hope it will be. We'd love to have you in the program. And also, if it doesn't feel like quite the right fit, one of my sort of things I would want you to take away from the program is to say, okay, I got to go find the thing for me that's the right fit. We'll be doing a lot of different things in the hopes of being relevant for people bringing a lot of different kinds of needs and questions in different contexts. So Shaylin's probably like, why are you telling people to say no? And I'm like, well, you'll get the most out of the program if you are excited and feel like this program is the fit for you at this moment in your leadership journey. So we hope that is true. And if so, sign up and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.